Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Looking for Love in All the Wrong Dust Jackets, a show where three disgruntled harpies talk to you about everything we love in romance, whether that's books, movies, TV shows, whatever we like. My name's Liz.
I'm Danny.
And I'm Wiggles.
And welcome to the episode. Today we are discussing The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields. But before we get into that, I got to warn you, I got to let the people know that we are crass and unhinged. We're terribly unladylike. And we're going to talk about all of them naughty times using all them four-letter words.
There are not many.
There's one.
One, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get there.
Yeah. Anyway, Wiggs, tell us about Sydney J. Shields.
This is Sydney J. Shields, a swamp creature who evolved to hold a pen. She is a magna cum laude graduate of Columbus State University, where she majored in communication. She currently lives in Savannah, Georgia, with her partner and their dog. When not writing, Sydney can be found playing chess in the park, savoring afternoon tea, or doing any other activities that an 84-year-old soul trapped in a 25-year-old body would enjoy. You can find her across social media at Sydney J. Shields. Crazy how that works out. Here's a little something else that you can know about Sydney J. Shields. She has a blog on her website, and The Honey Witch is a debut novel. And so hopefully we can expect more things in the future. But those are all the books she has right now, and that's all the information that I have on her right now. So Danny, what's this book about?
This book is about a girl who is kind of she's in that Bridgerton era where she's out, she's doing the whole marriage bullshit thing.
Yeah.
She's going to all the balls and shit.
Going to all them balls.
All the balls. Sorry. And then she always gets these feelings that she needs to go out to a particular meadow during the full moon and everything. Come to find out, that's because she's a witch. Her grandmother is a witch. She's a witch. And her mom's kind of been suppressing it all this time to be like, nah, that's dangerous. Don't do that. Well, her grandma shows up and is like, you can be a one. So she runs away with her grandma. Runs away. It's a big argument with her mother first. And they go to this island that her grandmother lives on. She's supposed to protect it and protect all of the magical creatures, assist her. And she's a honey witch. They have a counterpart that is an ash witch, which has cursed them to never be able to fall in love. And she's learning how to be a witch. After a while, her grandmother dies. She's living on the island by herself. And she has some friends come over. Well, her friend and then her friend's best friend, who is a sourpuss. And she says, okay, fine. I will do a soulmate spell for you if you guys stay with me so that I can rub it in her face when I do it correctly. And so she does the spell and everything, and yay! And all the time the Ash Witch is trying to take over and get in. We'll discuss further. It's it's weird to try to do every wrap-up thing.
Yeah. No, I think you covered it.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah.
Main parts.
Yeah.
So let's discuss.
So the first thing that we see that we're kind of introduced to is this world where she's being forced to go to a ball that she doesn't want to go to, very Eloise Bridgerton-esque, and then decides that she will dance with this one guy who's willing to dance with her for all of her dances so she can leave earlier. And I don't know if that intro really made sense to me, because in a world where seemingly LGBT relationships are totally accepted, but there's still patriarchy, those two don't mesh at all.
Yep, I have that exact note in here. Is this queer normative structure that is also exactly Regency-esque?
Yes.
It just seems to clash. And to be fair, that's not to say that you couldn't have both. I just think that having both without explaining it is super
that to not have any explanation of how that became a thing. Like, it's just a normative world where everything is the same except for there is the existence of magic, and, you know, they are completely fine with queer relationships and everything.
Right. But then to also, like, have it so that, I'm sorry, I already forgot this bitch's name. Marigold. So then to have it as that Marigold, like, her whole thing is she must become a wife.
Yes.
It's like, okay. But if your whole thing is to become a wife and you end up with a woman, which she's dated women in the past, or this world time period's version of dating, and you're both have a goal of becoming a wife, like, how does that fit in your patriarchal society?
Yeah,
Right?
that's what confuses me.
And the other part about it that's really confusing to me is that, like, is it exclusively patriarchal to the sense of, like, wanting more reproduction? Like, because then I guess I get it a little bit more, but that's never expressed. And even if that's the case, then wouldn't you still find queer relationships objectionable?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, it doesn't make sense.
And the
Just
thing
to
is,
be clear, we do not find them objectionable.
No,
We're just confused
just
as to how in this timeline they're
patriarchal
not at that
societies do.
moment.
yeah. Well, and that's the point I was going to make, is like, I liked the fact that these queer relationships were just run of the mill normal.
Yeah.
Like, that's great. Love it.
Nobody
awesome.
bats an eyelash. Love
Give
that.
me more of that in my books. But yeah, to then be like, but you're still, the whole purpose is to become a wife. It's like, how does that work?
It doesn't. Those two ideas fundamentally clash. And so if you're going to change that, then it has to be something where the goal is for you to get married, not for you to be in a hetero relationship.
Well, and I think that maybe was the point, because, like, that was kind of what the author was getting at, was that it was just to, like, get married. Especially because I think Marigold talks at the beginning, because she doesn't have any, I was about to say abilities. That's not right. Any of these kind of artistic skills that her siblings have, she doesn't have value other than to be a wife. But yeah, it still seemed to be a little dissonant.
Well, and the other thing that would have needed to be explained is because it's still in the, you know, Bridgerton-esque time period where women can't necessarily have jobs either. So if there are two women who are easily married and there is no objection to that, how are they going to take care of themselves?
Right.
Is my other question. Because, you know, they can't, at that time period, women relied on their husband and or father. And it seems like her father must still be paying for her, even though she's in Innisfree, because she
still has plenty of money.
She still has plenty of money, and she's not charging for any of the things that she's doing for people.
Right?
Well, and there's other things in this world that lend to that patriarchal society. Like, a big plot point that comes up is the fact that Lottie, who is our other lead romantic character, has a bunch of tattoos, and tattoos are taboo in general, but men can get away with a couple, especially if they've been like sailors or you know, soldiers or something. But women absolutely cannot have any tattoos, to the point that, like, you will be severely punished.
Yeah, you will be arrested. There will be fines, everything.
So I think what it comes down to is, when you, as like an author, when you build a world based on something that we as the audience already know, in this case, Regency era society, and you build your world off of that, if you are going to change anything, such as having queer relationships, you have to be very explicit about that and how that fits into the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I'm coming up with these preconceived notions, because you're setting it in a place that already has rules that we already know about. And if you want to change those rules, have at it, but you have to be explicit about changing them.
Trust me, we wish it had been a thing back then.
Oh, for sure.
Well, I think Bridgerton, again, being an example, is a really successful one when you talk about the television show, right? There would not have been relationships that would have been accepted that way in terms of interracial relationships.
Right.
And so the way that went through and were like, this is why, right? The queen married into this family, and that made it more acceptable, and it gave her the opportunity to elevate certain families, right?
Yes.
Like that, you took the time to explain it so that we're all on board, right? We all know where we're coming from on it. This just didn't do that. And one of the things that makes it really hard for me to understand, if you're going to try and maintain this Regency facade, is that you can't have the opportunity for there to be same-sex relationships while simultaneously having different rules for the sexes.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Those fundamentally butt heads. And so if a woman can't be a pursuer and a man can't be pursued, then how are you able to have same-sex relationships? Because what?
Yeah, it definitely felt like it just wasn't fully thought out. It kind of felt like somebody went, okay, I want to write a Regency, witchy, cozy book, and I do want to have queer relationships, but they just took queer relationships and plopped them in a pre-existing world instead of saying like you said, if the goal is still like everybody has to get married off, that's fine, but you need to show women having jobs to show that there's that you could be in a female lesbian relationship where one person is the provider or both are the provider. You need to show people wearing, yes, they still have to wear specific dress, but does a woman have to wear a dress? Maybe not necessarily. They have to fit certain standards, but the clothing can be the same based on sexes or genders, excuse me.
Well, I think too, the way that she could have easily gotten around it and still had the oppression that is this very patriarchal society involved is that you make the island the safe haven. Like everybody there is accepting, everybody there allows, right?
Yeah.
And I love the idea of it being this world where everybody is accepted.
Yeah.
But you can't have both. You can't have oppression and freedom. Those two things diametrically opposed to each other.
Yeah.
Or you have to write it in such a way where the oppression still makes sense with those freedoms.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, absolutely. So from the jump in the book, everything was not tainted by that, but influenced how you read it, because you had to sort of read it with a grain of salt, where you were like, I have to just kind of accept things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think she would have been better served just not even including that. I get what she was doing. She shows so much in that first short scene, right? Because we get demonstrated that Marigold's younger sister is now the star of the family, the way that her father is understanding of what she wants to do, the way her mother is not.
Yeah.
The expectations that are still upon her that she doesn't really want to try even to fit into. All that's established in that first scene, along with her having some kind of weird spiritual connection to the land.
I think the other thing, though, that beginning scene did that I didn't like is it set the stage or set the scene of the book, the tone of the book, in a way that completely shifted just like 2 chapters later. And it's like, why? I read the book and I was like, why in the world are we in a carriage in Regency? Not London, but England or some version thereof, going to a ball when I picked up a book that's supposed to be about a witch living on an island doing honey magic.
Yes.
I also was confused. I was like, okay, take me there, I guess. But
yeah.
Huh? I thought I had, because as per usual, I listened to the audiobook.
Sure.
I know, shocking. Although I will say the audiobook, awesome.
It was nice. I did the audiobook on this one.
She when speaking for the characters, she spoke with more kind of an Irish accent, and I really liked that. But like the narration was like more British.
Sure.
I did quite enjoy the audiobook. But yeah, I was very confused. I'm like, I thought they said that this was about a witch in an island and honey magic.
Yeah.
But did I pick the wrong one?
I'm honestly surprised that like didn't get edited out, because I can completely understand when you're writing like in your drafts and stuff, writing that beginning out to like set the stage almost for yourself as the author. But then it feels like it should have been like, okay, that's actually not the start of the book. The start of the book is here. All of that intro is great just for me as as characterization, but that's not actually the start of the book. And then just take those out.
I think I would have liked it more if you'd been introduced to these bits as more as like back thoughts for her,
like introspective thoughts,
thoughts, or her remembering things, especially after her grandmother dies.
Yeah,
if she's thinking back to how much her life has changed and you get like a flashback or whatever, I think I would have enjoyed that scene more as being part of that, because then you do get introduced to the fact that the person that she thought she had been in love with proposes to a girl right in front of her.
Well, and like I get that was all supposed to set up like why is Marigold wanting to leave her family behind and stuff, but I mean,
it felt weirdly like a weak justification. Am I alone on that one? Because I just sort of was like, I was just I got where she was coming from, like you wouldn't want to be around that, but it seemed like that was supposed to be the justification and not the desire to go and learn this magic that you exclusively can learn.
Right. That is a much better like reason.
Yes.
Anything anyway. Like as soon as if grandma comes up and says, hey, you're actually a really cool witch, and if you want to come live with me, I'm going to teach you awesome magic. That's the only justification I need.
I'd be like,
I'm right there for it.
Right? The Queen of Genovia shows up and says, you're a princess. You go.
Yes.
You say shut up and then you go.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Tana.
Shut up.
Shut up.
That always makes me have, see, Your Majesty, in America, shut up doesn't always mean be quiet. It could be, it's a term of excitement. Gee whiz, golly wally.
Yes, that's what we mean.
Yes.
Golly Wally.
Golly wally.
I need to watch those movies again. I haven't watched them in so long.
I think
Yes.
there's a new one coming out soon, too.
Yes, I have seen that as well. I'm obviously skeptical.
I mean, I always am, but I actually really did enjoy the second one.
Well, they need to get it out before Julie Andrews is not with us.
Uh-huh.
Wash your mouth out with soap.
Listen, I'm just stating facts.
I'm aware.
I will say the one thing that made me kind of sad in the beginning of the book is Mr. Notley, who is this suitor who's the guy at the ball who signs Marigold's dance card all full of his names. And
He seemed so nice.
He seemed so nice, and he seemed like they were actually having a pleasant time until Marigold runs off, and he's like, where are you going? She's like, I just can't be married. It's not for me. And he's like, well, you could be married to me.
Right?
And I'm like, oh,
if I didn't already
boy.
know it was a sapphic romance, I
Yeah.
was like, so this is their meet cute.
Yes.
So, like, I knew it was a sapphic romance and still was like, but why not this sweet man?
Right. He could have followed her to the island and been so cute. He also can't dance and is socially awkward and loves honey cakes. Like,
It was far too long into the book that I was hoping for a throuple.
yes.
Past where it was like acceptable to think that was going to happen, and I was still like, you never know, she's going to go back for the wedding and
Yes.
he's going to be there and they're going to somehow throuple this situation.
I would have loved it if that's where it ended up, especially at that like 2/3 part as he comes back and I'm like,
Yes.
oh, hello.
Yes, I would have loved it. I would have ate it up. I would have been like, yes.
I'm hoping maybe there's like another book coming and we get a justification or a lovely
don't
person for
know.
him. Maybe she makes him a soulmate spell.
Well, sure hope so, because
'Cause
he was very nice.
He was very nice.
And like, I don't think he was even that put off by her being like, I'm gonna go dance barefoot in the woods.
No, he seemed to kind of just be like, okay, well, I'll see you.
Okay, well, I'll see you next time.
Yeah. Okay, you go have fun. I'll see
And
you.
he
at the
went
next
home.
ball.
He went home and he closed the door and he leaned against the door and he sighed and he said, I'm gonna marry that girl.
Yes.
And then he laid on the bed and kicked his feet.
And then he didn't.
And then she was not at any future balls.
Yeah, his heart's broken for sure.
For sure. I also like when, again, because we knew this was a sapphic romance, but also when Marigold spent so much time talking about August, you know,
Yeah.
her childhood friend who was there when all these things happened and like one of the few people that she loved playing with. And I was
Yes.
like, and then he shows up again when she goes back to the island and I'm like, is this throuple? Same. What is happening? There's too many cute boys.
Well, I was
Poor
like,
sweet
when they
August.
both got the soulmate term, I was
Yes.
like, okay, but they just said that they're platonic soulmates. So what if they're both Marigold soulmates?
Right?
And I thought that was where the book was going, and I was wrong.
I loved that moment when she's like, well, my sister's getting married. I've got to go. You know, thanks, guys. And he's like, I feel something from the charm. And she's like, what? And he goes, it's telling me to go with you. And I'm like,
At first, I was like,
I know.
I was with Lottie. I was like, bitch, did you actually feel something? Or are you just like
Are
being one
you
of those
bored?
cheeky extroverts?
Yeah. I really liked Lottie as a character and wanted more of her, but I didn't fully get into and believe the Lottie Marigold romance.
I agree
Same.
wholeheartedly.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not alone.
I couldn't. So the whole thing is that there's a honey witch and an ash witch. It's kind of like balances almost, but like this, usually I think they're supposed to work together, but
Yeah.
for whatever reason, her grandmother's generation of the honey witch and the ash witch turned against each other because the ash witch is,
Yeah, she really wanted to go for that immortality,
yep.
as they often do.
As they often do. And she went a little cray-cray. And so it fairly early on, I was like, oh, Lottie's the ash witch.
Oh yeah, I saw that like a mile away.
Oh, yeah. I was just like, oh, that's the ash witch. There she is.
Very heavy-handed with those clues.
Well, I mean, if you needed any more confirmation, she's got literally a ward symbol tattooed on her chest.
Right.
And you're like, oh, I wonder where you got that.
I will say I didn't really understand the like honey witch, ash witch balance thing. It seemed a little unnecessary to be like, and these two are supposed to balance each other. But
I think I guess if we got to see more of the other witches
yeah.
and why it matters that there's this counterbalance to everything, but they didn't really explain it. They just said it was.
Yeah.
Right.
I think they probably can do really cool things together.
I get
But-
I get that the honey witch is representing life and the ash witch is representing death, and like the
Smoke calms bees, too.
well, yeah, like I get the metaphor. It just didn't seem to really like have value in the book.
Yeah. I think, again, if there is a second book, maybe we'll get to see some cool balancing,
Sure.
stuff, but who the fuck knows?
Yeah, I don't know. And the thing is, I don't know if there'll be a second book.
I don't
This
know.
feels very standalone.
It
I
does.
I don't know if there is a second one, at least announced.
I don't think there's been one announced. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't think there's been one announced. I always hope for a second book, you know me. I'm like, ooh, tell me more of things.
Yes.
To get back to the Lottie Marigold relationship, though, right? Because that's what we're here for. We're here for the romance.
Yeah. Rawr.
You're right. I did not get it at all because Lottie wasn't just like grumpy. She was straight up cruel to Marigold.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
she was mean.
And it was explained that it's because of the curse, right? So the Grandma Ash Witch put a curse on the Honey Witch's line that they cannot have love, which was somehow supposed to end their line, but like that doesn't make a lick of sense. But
Yeah,
anyways,
you don't need love to get pregnant.
right, exactly. Even without magic,
Yeah.
which Grandma Honey Witch, I can't remember her name, used to get pregnant with Marigold's mother. But anyway, so Lottie is specifically cruel and grumpy and sullen because of this curse, and they still fall for each other despite that, which again, yeah, is a cool message. But I felt no like love between them, no romance, no nothing.
The curse is supposed to be that no one can fall in love with a honey witch.
Yes.
Yes.
And so the workaround of that is that you choose to forego your powers.
Yes.
And that's how her mother has ended up with her father, who is her soulmate. But so the whole time Lottie is like fighting against it, and we don't know that officially at first, but it becomes very obvious that it's like those two got the hots for each other, especially when they go skinny dipping.
Yeah.
But even when they did things that were supposed to be like hints of romance, it didn't like read that way.
Yeah.
And so for me, the first time where I was like, I feel like I'm getting the romance is when Lottie was tattooing the bee on Marigold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until then, it felt like it felt like there was no romantic intention there. Even though I know that's what the author was trying to do, it just didn't feel that.
Well, that's because anytime there was anything that could have been romantic, like the skinny dipping and
August was there.
well, yeah, August was always there.
Yeah.
But also it was then undermined almost immediately by Lottie being excessively cruel,
Yes.
which again, I understand is a reaction to the curse, but it also meant as the reader, I didn't buy into any of it.
Right.
My thing also is that she makes a big show of she doesn't believe in anything that Marigold is doing. She doesn't believe in the magic, blah, blah, blah. But, and August says that, you'd have to ask her about that. She's been through a lot, blah, blah, blah. And again, yes, she absolutely has been through a lot. Her parents died in a house fire and everything, but that's all she remembers about it is that her parents died in a house fire.
Right.
She doesn't really remember that it was anything magical or anything like that. So why does she have such a bad attitude about magic if she doesn't remember?
She explained, the way Lottie explained it is that her mother did believe in magic. She remembered that. And so she was always like, why didn't magic save them? And so she kind of like blamed magic for not saving them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just was like, what? Why was she so mean about it?
Yeah, it was kind of also just a little bit of a throwaway line.
It was.
So that didn't help in you understanding Lottie's motivations.
Well, because you can be skeptical about that kind of stuff and not be a complete and utter asshole about it too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a big difference in being like, yeah, I don't really believe in this, but like, you do you, boo situation.
Well, and I had really hoped that so at one point we find out that the reason Lottie is always in these like really covered up dresses, which Marigold points out like right away, she's like, it's hot. Why the hell is she completely covered up like that?
Yeah.
Is because she is heavily tattooed, because she did it as a way to cover up the burn marks or turn them into something beautiful that she got from that house fire that killed her parents. So when Marigold learns that, and Lottie is basically like saying like, no, you're going to judge me on this, whatever. And Marigold is like, well, I know something about being judged based on, something core to you or whatever. I thought that was going to be such a like a turning point. And Lottie would just be like, you're right. I'm being a bitch. I need to stop. But she didn't. She just kept going with the like, magic is mythcraft, and what you do, everything you do is just like made up and a joke and whatever.
She also so she later on says that she felt the soulmate thing right away.
Yeah.
Like the second she put it on and everything. But she was still a complete and utter bitch about the magic.
Yeah.
Like, still just went that way. And it's like, what? You feel it. Why are you?
Well, I can understand her still like pushing it away, being skeptical or trying to reject it, because by feeling that, all of a sudden it completely shifts her entire perspective. And to almost like defend how cruel she's been to Marigold, she wants to continue to believe that it's just mythcraft, as she calls it.
Yeah, but I just don't think she needs to continually be such a bitch about it. Like, she can still be like, well, I don't think I believe in it and everything, but maybe not be as mean.
Yeah, there's opportunities for her to like slowly kind of get on board with it, and instead that just really didn't happen.
I think the other issue that I had with the whole romance overall, if I'm looking at like that part of the book, is that the switch from not romantic to romantic is so abrupt. And then it's like does a 180 where Marigold's running away and Lottie's chasing Marigold, because Marigold's like, you will literally die, and Lottie's like, I want to die, and you're like, stop.
Yeah, I understand Marigold being like, you have passed out multiple times because this curse is trying to keep us apart. Like, maybe you should listen to that.
Maybe we don't do this.
Yeah, but I also find it frustrating that at no point does Marigold go, okay, look, we can't do anything physical until we get this figured out, but I am going to try and break the curse, because I feel like that settles things down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we can all take a breath. And instead they were just like, I'm going to say no physical activity, and then we're going to do immediately physical activity. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna not actually touch each other and mutually masturbate, and you almost die.
Which was a hot scene.
Was a hot scene until the second she was like, and there's no reply. I'm like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
That was rough. I do completely understand Lottie's thought process on that, right? Because they've kissed and Lottie like fucking bleeds everywhere, like her nose just runs blood, and so she's like, wait a minute, if we don't touch but we're just like next to each other while we do it, loophole.
Yeah, I loved the thought process, honestly, but
Well, I wonder too, like as I was reading it, because I knew that obviously something was going to happen. There's no way they were going to get away scot-free that way.
yeah, no.
Was how long into it did Lottie start feeling symptoms and just
Yeah.
fucking ignore it?
She ignored it a lot of times when they
Yeah.
were doing stuff like that. She's like, no, it's fine. I'm like, no, ma'am.
Well, and that's like, I mean, that's so shitty to do to Marigold, because Marigold is literally, she's putting her trust in Lottie to say like, when this is, when you're starting to feel it, we need to stop. Like, I'm trusting you to tell me. And then no.
Like, if she had not been brought back at that moment, it would have destroyed her.
It should still destroy her.
Yeah.
She's going to have trauma anytime they have sex from now on.
Oh,
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Well, and the other part about it is that the way that Lottie reacts to Marigold sending her away is that she's doing the worst thing ever. And it's like, what else do you expect her to do in response to that? You literally died, and you have no intention of stopping.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, it's not just out of protection for you, it's self-preservation at that point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I fundamentally agree.
Yeah, the
with
second
what
she
was
sent her
doing.
away, I was like, good girl.
Yeah,
'cause,
yeah.
Well, she tried to send her away like nicely several times, and Lottie's just like, no, I'm going to be here. And it's like, you literally died the last time we were together.
Well, in a bit of writing that I thought was such a convenient thing and not, in my opinion, well written into the plot, is that they go back to Marigold's sister's wedding, and of course it's Marigold's brother that happens to be what's his name, August's soulmate, right? And so they're not going to come back to the island, and it's like, that just felt very cheap, and let me just get him out of the way for everything that's going to happen next, because I think if he was there, then Marigold would say, take her away, August.
Yeah.
And it would be,
they'd have a voice of reason in this situation
Yes.
and everything.
yes.
Also, I think if he had come with, her brother would be there as well.
Yes.
I thought that's where it was going to go too, because I didn't have a problem with August and Frankie having this soulmate connection, because that's the whole reason August and Lottie went to go to the wedding. But it did seem very weird, especially with everything August knows about Lottie and how many times she's been abandoned by people's choices or not, that he would just be like, sorry, kind of adopted sister, I just saw my soulmate, so bye-bye.
Yes. That's what I mean, where it's just like,
It would have made much better sense for me if Frankie were to come back with August, and maybe, yes, they are going to go on this grand trip or whatever, but they need to go to August's hometown and talk to his family and
go see his parents, and then Frankie can finally see his grandmother's cottage and where his sister is now at. Like, that would have been better.
It would have made
and get
much more
Lottie
sense
set
to me.
up somewhere else,
Yeah.
because she's just staying with his parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. It made August look kind of shitty.
Yeah.
If we're being honest.
And he was our sweet boy most of the time. That moment where he looks under the table and they carved shit into the bottom of the table as children. I'm like, oh, that's adorable.
Well, and it doesn't seem to match with August's character, which is to be a little bit of this protector of Lottie, but also to be someone that like kind of really collects and holds on to people, because as soon as Marigold comes back, there's not even like a misstep from August. It's just like, oh my gosh, this is my childhood best friend. I'm right here now.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and he comes back from being at sea with his father, and he's been dumped by his fiance,
yeah.
and he instantly goes to Marigold
Right.
without Lottie. like he just to Marigold.
So like, yeah, it just didn't make sense with this character at all.
No, and it just felt like she didn't want to there to be anyone there for Lottie or Marigold to rely on, because then the very next thing, the last person on the island that they can go to ends up dying for them.
Oh, that
Yeah.
that upset me so
Poor
much.
Mr. Benny.
Poor
Mr.
Mr.
Benny.
Benny. His red suspenders.
Yeah. It also was not surprising that Mr. Benny was grandmother Althea. I finally figured out her name.
Yep.
Her soulmate.
Yeah,
Again,
that didn't
was
surprise
very
me at all.
heavy-handed in it.
It
as
did
well.
still hurt when he described waking
Uh-huh.
up and realizing that was her the whole time.
Oh yeah, that's terrible.
The way he described it as like one day he knows she's her soulmate, they're engaged, and then the next he has no memories of her, and then waking up 50 years later or something like that to, oh my God,
Yeah.
my fucking soulmate is dead.
Mm-hmm.
It was very heartbreaking.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about that.
That hurt.
You're
me.
right.
The description of like the mourning process, I actually was very pleased with how her
Yeah.
going through the mourning process, and how the people of the island were being really respectful of, like, Mr. Benny threatened them within an
Yes.
inch of their life, but let her mourn, but they would still like occasionally stop in really gently to be like, hey, we're here to check on you, kiddo.
Right.
Not overtly, but just like she made it sound like everyone collectively was like, I think you need to go now, and everyone else stay away.
Right.
Yeah.
I also did like the progression of Marigold being like super happy to be on the island with her grandmother and to learn all this magic, and kind of feel like she's found her purpose, found what her life is supposed to be, to her grandmother passing, all of the grief, and then just the time, how quickly that time turned into her staring down the barrel of the rest of her life, being alone forever. And like how tragic that felt.
How tragic it felt, and also because we have a year after she's passed away that we see Marigold's life, and how she just kind of gradually through the grief and everything still comes into herself, and how she's going to do this, and then it gets disrupted by honestly the soulmate bond not being able to do its thing and everything.
Yeah, I mean it was really good to show Marigold learning and growing. I wish we would have had more of that, because it felt like she went from, I don't know, magic to like powerful enough to take on the arch ash witch at the end.
Yeah.
She be a bitch.
The other thing that I think that the author did really well in showing her growth is, for the longest, including when we first meet her, she has no desire to be in a romantic relationship, especially after that douchebag broke up with her. But
George.
yeah,
Georgia.
but I really like the path she takes that is not direct line to the thought process of, oh, actually I'm lonely now, and maybe being alone isn't as low a sacrifice as I originally thought. That she shows that as like this very up and down logic that you get into and then you get back out of, and that's so real to life.
Yeah.
Whereas I've read so many books where it's just like, and now I'm lonely and I want somebody, and it's like, that's not really how it works. I mean, it does in a moment, and then you're like, but actually I'm really fine, independent, I like my freedom, and then you're like, but I do wish there was someone else here.
Right. Well, and it also didn't go straight to, I want a romantic partner. It went to like, I'm just alone. Oh, Mr. Benny's here. Okay, this is nice for a couple days.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my friends are here. Yeah, let's hang out for a couple days. And then to like, oh, but they're going to eventually leave, and then I'm going to be alone again because there's nobody staying with me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so I thought that was done really well, and showed how she could be convinced by Lottie to keep doing these things, even though she's afraid of the outcome, because one, yes, she's her soulmate, but like that doesn't mean that you automatically are just like, I know this person, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But two, Lottie is showing her the type of love and affection she always wanted towards the second half of it anyway. and is also giving her connection that feels like it's not going to run away from her anymore.
Yeah. Well, since we talked about one writing aspect that went really well, I'll bring up one that I think did not. I felt like the tone of the book stayed the same the entire book. So I like, there weren't emotional ups and downs except for a few key moments. I did get a little like choked up when Althea passed.
Yeah, same.
But like the action scenes felt like they read exactly the same as like just travel scenes, and the even the sex scene kind of really didn't change tone much. The romantic scenes versus like their fighting scenes, like it just kind of all felt the same.
I think I maybe would have had that if I hadn't listened to the audiobook, but she put on a performance, and so I didn't have that as much. But I can see where that would be a thing.
Yeah. I think the way I interpreted it is just like the writing style did not change, especially during like the big dramatic moments and the fight scenes. And specifically in fight scenes, you can't write it the same. Like if you want it to feel punchy, which a fight scene does, even in a cozy book, even with like magic, you can't write it exactly the same as you do like your descriptive scenes, because then it won't be punchy.
I also felt like the fights at the end didn't, like, I felt like the whole time I didn't really know what was happening. Like I was getting the information, but I didn't really, like, when you think about like a book to movie adaptation, you should be able to pretty much understand what you're gonna see, and I could not visually picture it.
I'm the same way. I couldn't. I was a little confused as to like what, like I get it and don't at the same time.
Well, I think that comes down to, like, to me, just how it was written. Like when Mr. Benny died in that fight scene, it was, oh, and Mr. Benny hit her, the Ash Witch Vestra or something like that, on the head with a shovel, and then the woman turned around and his body twisted and he's dead.
Right. And I'm just like, how weak is Mr. Benny?
Yeah.
Because getting hit in the head with a shovel is something that slows you down at least for a beat.
Yeah.
Like, granted, he's old, but
And all of that in the book happened in one chapter, in one paragraph.
Yes.
And that, like, by not breaking that up into separate paragraphs and giving us those separate beats, it all just read flat.
Yes. Similar to when the house burned, like there was more information that we were getting on Marigold's emotional state with it burning, this place that she has come to call home.
Yeah.
Right. And less on like how and why, like how is, like what's the visual? I can't picture it. Like I can picture a house burning, but I can't picture that house burning and the circumstances that are keeping the Ash Witch inside.
Yeah, I was really confused as to like Marigold running in and making sure the plants inside got dipped in the tallow so that they lit on fire.
Yeah.
And it was like, I factually know what you're telling me, but it doesn't meld into a scene.
Yes.
I don't think it was described enough, because, and this maybe just be a thing with me. I happened to glance down to see like how much of the book was left when the like big climactic thing happened. And granted, I was listening at 2 times speed, so we need to double this, but there was 15 minutes left of the book.
Yeah, the climax of the book happens basically at the end of the book, so we don't really get much. We get like almost no resolution.
Yeah.
No.
And like
I just think it needed
norm.
to be described more, and I think we also needed like a much more descriptive like ending where they you know are real. Like I know we kind of got an ending where they're together and everything, but like I wanted to know more about like how they reestablished the house, how they fixed everything.
Yeah,
like she talked about how they you know redid the apiary, and they're gonna have their first harvest of honey very soon and everything. But I'm like, but I would have actually in a cozy book really enjoyed the scenes of them coming together to rebuild this house, which is now going to be their home, and how they reestablish the hives and everything and work together. And I think that would have actually given us a lot of information about how like an ash witch and a honey witch are supposed to work together,
Right.
and how it would maybe make Innisfree more thriving to have them both working together, if that makes more sense. I just think if we'd had that chunk at the end, I think I could have forgiven a lot of the like not having that knowledge at the beginning, because those two wouldn't have that knowledge, because her grandmother never really spoke of it, because they had this
Yeah.
big, a
The only thing they would have had for that would have been the Grimoire.
Yes.
Which is apparently 600 pages long of like detail.
Yes. Yes. It's spells and then just a crap load of detail.
Yeah.
Her grandma just didn't have indexes.
Yeah.
She said the beginning of it is indexed and then not so much.
Which is honestly feels appropriate for Althea, because like she's giving me the vibe of like she goes on vibes. And so at one point she was like indexing, it's going to be my new thing. And then she's like, not anymore.
Or it's very much a like at the beginning I knew these things, but then I was discovering how to do new things. So she was writing them down, and it's kind of hard to index a book
As you're writing
as you're writing it. Yeah.
I also wish we would have gotten more about the Hazelwood Forest.
Yeah.
Where the Will-o'-the-Wisp was. And
what its purpose was.
Yeah.
And why can't she go to that light?
Right. All we got kind of at the end is a will-o'-wisp is like an omen, kind of. But like, I assume she couldn't go to the Hazelwood Forest because that's where Vesra, the Ash Witch, was. But like, I wanted, at the end, like Lottie and Marigold going to explore it, and then realizing that's also in their domain or something.
This is a thought I had a couple of times while reading this book. After Lottie dies, is that this book suffers from being forced to have a happy ending.
Yeah.
I think that it's a better story if Lottie does actually die and Marigold takes her back to Innisfree to give her a proper burial, and that's when the Ash Witch comes to tempt her and says, you can have her back. You can even have her back without the curse. But
I like that.
Oh, I do
Zombie
too.
Lottie, I like it a lot.
I like it, and I also like it more that if Marigold doesn't give in and then they're reunited after.
I like that. I do like her giving in, because then you still can have your happy ending.
yeah, you can have your happy ending, and you can have, and in the justifications all make more sense. The choices that get made afterwards, especially them happening so fast, because like the thing is that body is only going to be able to resustain life for so long.
Yeah.
Right.
Very surprisingly short amount of time.
Right. And here's the thing, like it's a happy ending, but it's a bittersweet ending, because then Lottie has immortality, but Marigold doesn't. And just she pushed to have that herself, or if she wants to have an ending, a natural ending to her life, so she can see her grandmother again, so she can see the rest of her family again, because she knows now what's on the other side.
Right. Or you write an epilogue where they're both like on their 100th birthday, and Marigold is like dying because she's so old, and Lottie still looks young because she hasn't aged, and Marigold passes and it's very sweet, and Lottie, like an old vampire, goes out into the sun, but not because that wouldn't kill her, but you know what I mean.
Well, and what I think would be like the sweetest, right, is Lottie she's had all this time to study now, right? So she's tapped into her magic, and she has learned how to undo the Honey Witch's magic. And so she lets herself go.
Yeah.
Right? Beautiful ending.
Right? That's beautiful.
Bittersweet and beautiful. And that's what
It's been
this
a while
needed.
since we've had Rewrite Corner with one of us.
You're right. I should rewrite more. Watch out, authors. But no, yeah, I just like it killed the stakes a little bit.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say I didn't dislike this book by any
No.
means. I just think it had a lot of potential. I just think it maybe needed a few.
I think it needed a few more passes in the cooker.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you, I kind of did dislike this book. I was so bored by the end, which is probably why I didn't enjoy like the fight scenes and stuff at the end, because I was just like, I don't care anymore. I just do not care.
Well, and I'll admit I'm a slight bit biased because I really wanted to read another book instead of this book.
Fair.
Like, not like for the podcast I wanted to read a different book, but like in my life there was another book calling to me.
Yeah, Mood Reader Wiggles was mood and heart.
Oh, she did not want to read this book. And I was like, but we need to read this book. And she was like, no.
That is the difficult thing with having this podcast. Sometimes is I'm like, I need to do this, but
But
for
I have
whom
this
the bell
one.
tolls.
Yeah.
I struggle the most because like I cannot pick up a new book until the old one has finished.
Mm-hmm.
There's only been a couple of times where it's like you simply cannot finish what you're reading in time, so you're gonna have to suffer through this, and it's awful and I hate it. So I was like power reading The Beach Read by Emily Henry before this, and I was like, I wish I could take my time with you. You're so beautiful. I love you so much, but I gotta go.
Depending on how much I like the book too, I sometimes go into book depression.
Yeah.
So like I finished For Whom the Bell Tolls, and that put me into book depression for a minute, and I was like, I hate this because I know nothing is going to be as good as this for a while, and it hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you can't be an asshole about a book that you did actually like because it's not this book.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my biggest problem is I just internally am like, it's not that good. And I'm like, but Danny, don't be a bitch.
I feel you. I wanted to like this book so much more than I did.
I
And I
really
think
did,
that's
too.
the other problem is I had higher expectations.
I agree.
Because I really thought we were going to get to like really live in the world.
Yep.
And I feel like we never really fully settled in because Marigold never fully settled in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pitched from everything I've seen online as this cozy, sapphic, witchy, like cottagecore book, and I feel like I never really got almost any of that, even the sapphic part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and like it has the illusion of cozy,
Yeah.
Yes.
but it's not actually like a cozy book.
No.
And so that's why I think it grated on me just like I did. Again,
Yes.
I didn't dislike it. I just think it needed tweaks to make it what it was kind of proposed to be.
Yeah, I really wanted, honestly, I wanted just full ass scenes where they were like traipsing through the forest to go harvest, you know, these
Mushrooms
things
or
for
whatever.
spells.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or like, yeah, going to explore, you know, the different magic and like doing all of these. Like, I wanted such domestic, like harvesting, foraging shit, and I got
Oh.
none of it.
And if Lottie could have been like discovering her own magic while living
Yeah.
there and kind of realizing that, oh, wait, I have things too. And that it would be so cute.
Right. I think a massive part was missed where, because Lottie is doing things that very clearly to the audience shows she has magic. I think it would have been really cool to be able to see her actually have this internal struggle with like, magic sucks and my mom liked it, but it didn't save her. But why the hell do I have these weird like sensations or pulls or like, you
And
know?
why can I see these
Yeah.
weird creatures?
Well, that's the other thing, because she sees these weird creatures, and yes, they are described to be animals or like look like animals, but when Marigold sees them, they seem to have this like weird glow about them. So why is Lottie not freaked out by that?
And she's lived out there. She doesn't live at Innisfree, but she lives very near it and everything. So you can't tell me she never once was like, hey, what's that, to another villager or whatever. And
Well, and also the village was so like on board with Althea and Althea's magic. They relied on her to the point when Althea comes back with Marigold the first time, there's a woman who is experiencing a miscarriage, and Althea has to help her. So even if Lottie is skeptical of magic, she at least would have heard so many stories of Althea helping
yeah,
people, and not just like, oh, here's a spell and sure, she helped you. Oh yeah, think it's the magic. No, actually, like, she helped in these very clear situations.
Yeah, medical issues. That,
She at least would have been accepted as a wise woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the other part that I find confusing is you didn't have to limit the amount of people that were going to then Marigold.
Yeah.
And we barely get to see her crafting things for these other people. We know that she does because we're told she does, but we don't get to see her going a pinch of this, a pinch of that, and this, and you're going to, your hair's going to grow back, or your mood will change, whatever it is, right? Like, we didn't get any of that, and that's kind of what I was there for, was the, like, even if they were like fully made up, like there's nothing to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Like the idea is still implanted in our heads, eye of newt, that kind of thing. Like, and so the cozy, sweet honey implied, right? Version of that was what I was there for. And instead we that got pushed to the background, which makes no sense if you're going to call it a cozy book.
Well, and I think I would have really enjoyed seeing, and this could be because I'm kind of in a cozy era, although the book that I'm reading right now is a mafia romance.
Look, we all got to take breaks.
Yeah, it's fine.
Can't have too much of one thing, otherwise you go, I don't want that anymore.
Yeah. I just think it would have been cool, like, after, Althea passed and everything, and after Mr. Benny's like, okay, give her some time, it would have been really interesting to see, like, her starting to have the customers come in and starting to grow her own confidence in her magic from what she learned things from her grandmother, but she also had to learn a lot from going through the Grimmery.
Right.
And so I think it would have been really cool and interesting to have customers come to her and at first her be a little nervous about, okay, well, hold on, let me, double check this 14 times to make sure I'm doing this right for you. And then it eventually becoming kind of second nature to her of, oh, of course, here's this, that, and the other thing, and off you go. I just think it would have been nice to see her grow that, because she does live alone on the island for a year.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would have liked that more than, like, some of the other scenes we did get. Random ass question. What is the difference between a grimoire and a grimoire? Is it just our pronunciation and they're the same thing?
Well, okay. So I don't know that grimoire is like a term that's used colloquially to describe anything witchy in the real world.
Okay.
Or if it is, it would be something like that, where it's a different pronunciation in a different country kind of thing.
Yeah.
A grimoire, that is a witch's book of spells exclusively. And so, like, that is often, like, described as almost like this, like, eerie, evilly kind of text, because it's specifically in the real world is like the stuff that demonologists would use as evidence, right? So, like, it's not even something that you can totally apply to fantasy, because there is a real thing in the real world, but you can make a lot of arguments that wasn't even like something anyone would use for practicing in some cases. So anyway.
Gotcha. I had only ever heard grimoire used in Wicked, and so I was like, where's this word coming from that we're using it?
Also in Dungeons & Dragons, I have a grimoire.
Is it a grimoire or a grimoire?
It's a grimoire.
There you go.
Yeah, I would have to look it up, but I do not think grimoire is a real world term.
Fair enough.
But
that's okay. I was just hoping that you witchy bitches would know the answer.
Can I also say that I'm a little sad that we never got, like, a spicy scene after she died?
Right, like one that actually made me feel good reading it.
Yeah.
Because obviously the mutual masturbation scene was enjoyable until she died.
Yeah.
So, like, that's clouded and bad.
I wanted one that, it didn't even have to be, like, super spicy or anything. I just wanted a romantic sex scene that actually they can have.
Yeah, something that really solidified it, you know? Yeah, I agree.
I was sad by that. I'm like, we never got to have them actually get to be together. And I understand if maybe you didn't want to write, like, a full thing, but, like, even a fade to black or most, or
But she already wrote a full thing with the
Yeah.
mutual masturbation. Like that was a full scene.
Yeah.
yeah. So why didn't we get a one
Like a
where
happy
they,
one.
like a happy one where they get to actually
Yeah.
enjoy each other?
Yes. Also, for a couple that is forced apart by a curse and can't really do what they want to do, this book was lacking in yearning.
Agree.
Yeah.
And that's what I come for. That's my bread and butter. I like the angst. I like the yearning. I'm like, yep, gobble, gobble, gobble. And that wasn't there.
And there was plenty of opportunity.
There was
Yeah.
so much opportunity. And it just, nope. She was like, and all of the romantic interactions felt very stilted.
Yeah.
And so it was a bummer on
If you're
that
gonna
front.
claim soulmateness, you need to have
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're at the point where we're already kind of talking about our feelings about the book. So I think it's ratings time.
Oh, yeah. What's y'all spice rating? As Danny was already kind of talking about it.
I don't even think I can give it a 2 because we had one good mutual masturbation scene that then was tainted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm feeling like a 1.5.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. Gavel, gavel.
Look at us go. Look at us.
What about your romance rating?
I didn't believe it.
No, I'm feeling like a 2, honestly.
Yeah.
I want and
I
this,
want to like them together.
yes. And this is the same problem I had when I was doing my overall rating on Goodreads. I was like, I would feel like I should give it a higher rating, but I also didn't enjoy it that much. So I'm gonna echo a 2.
I feel like my 2 really comes from the fact that the most romantic scene to me was the scene with her and Mr. Notley.
Yeah.
Not even the person she ends up with.
Yes, it's wild.
Yeah, I agree.
So 2 for you as well.
Yeah.
Which means gavel, gavel. Nice.
What about overall?
So I kind of wavered between a 2.5 and a 3, which I know is low, but I honestly just I just got to a point so quickly in this book, I did not care. If I didn't own the physical copy and we weren't reading it for this, I probably would have DNF'd it just because I was bored. So I landed on a 2.75.
We never should have said yes to you doing appointment.
I'll do it all the time now.
God damn it! You can't do it for every book.
Why? You said I can do it, and so I do it.
Let her run wild.
Yeah, it's true. Do you know how much so I could do the averages in my head most of the time, and
Yeah.
then that fucked with things. I was like, God damn it.
So none for Gretchen Wiener's bye. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not just doing it to be
No,
No,
we know.
I know.
annoying. That's 2.5 felt too low, and a 3 felt like I didn't like it enough to give it a 3. So
I'm going to go with you on the 2.75. I gave it a 3 on Goodreads. I like it and don't I really
yeah,
about this one.
you wanted it
There's
to be more.
so much about the book that I like. I like the premise of it. I just think there needed to be tweaks in how things happened and everything to actually make it what it was promised to be,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which was a cozy.
So my first rating on Goodreads was a 4, really meaning a 3.5.
Yeah.
And I think I rated it up because I felt like I wasn't being fair to the book because I wanted to read something else more.
Yeah.
But the more I think about it, I'm like, it's kind of a slight on that book anyway if I'm desperate to read something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And through this conversation, I have been thoroughly talked down to a 3.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Because I just am like, yeah, there actually were a lot of problems, and the way you felt about it was real. you were not
I sometimes
overcompensating.
find that when we've had the conversation
Yeah,
too.
Yeah.
There's been times where I'm like, okay, I'm not being an asshole.
yeah. I'm not. This isn't just. Well, and here's the thing. I think it's a fair statement to say that I'm the most critical of the 3 of us. And so then there's also this part of me where I'm like, okay, but am I just being hypercritical, or is my opinion and feeling valid?
There's been times too where I've done it the other way, where you
Yeah.
guys have pointed out things that I'm like, oh, you know what? You're right about that. And
That's actually happened to me almost more than the other, where I've rated it mid and we talk about it. I'm like, oh yeah, actually that was a 4.
yeah.
So, yeah, I'm gonna go with a 3.
Okay, that brings us to your recommendations.
Okay, I'm gonna steal it before anybody else does because I don't got
Okay.
anything for this. I don't read cozy romance, and I think we know this.
Okay.
All right. So my recommendation is going to be Legends and Lattes, which we did an episode on. So you should check that out. That one actually is a cozy sapphic romance, although it has less sexy times in it somehow. So
As in, it doesn't have any.
no,
Yeah.
it has a kiss
It is a geese.
in the keys, but it is super fun, and it's got just enough adventure for you to be enticed, and it's all about coffee. So if you're
Yeah.
a coffee girly like me, it will make you want to drink too much of it. So check it out.
Well, I think the best thing about like a cozy romance, when they have stakes, the stakes are like, they're important to that individual, but like they're not important to the world as a whole. And that is exactly what Legends and Lattes does.
Yes, and there is a sequel now.
Shop and Bone Dust.
Bookshop and Bone Dust. I thought I was wrong.
Yeah.
So you can also check that out. I haven't read that one, so I can't confirm that it's Buko Bucks.
What about you, Liz?
Okay, so I have 2. I have my first one, which is if you liked The Honey Witch. So if you listened to all of us talking and disagreed, or you agreed but still liked this book and want another book that kind of feels very similar, I would recommend Can't Spell Treason Without Tea by Rebecca Thorne. That one is also sapphic. It is about 2 women who are trying to set up a tea shop in a new small town in a fantasy world. They're dragons, and one of them is not a witch, like a high mage kind of character. And part of it is that because she is this really powerful mage, and the other one was a like captain of the guard, they have to go into hiding because everybody's trying to be like, where's our powerful mage at? The problems that I had with that one were kind of similar to this one, where instead of being cozy, it still had kind of an epic fantasy problem that was being solved. And so if you're okay with that, then give that one a try. The one I'm going to recommend if you really want a cozy romance, or not necessarily cozy romance, but cozy fantasy with just like a nice romance in it, is The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst, because all of the things that we were talking about wanting in a cozy fantasy are in that book. Like we get a lot of time with her setting up the spell shop, and we get a lot of time with her like interacting with the local people on this island that she just moved to. And there are some stakes that certainly push the plot along. And they are important. They are pretty important to the people on the island, but it's just a lot kind of like gentler in its pace, and we get to learn a lot about all of these fantastical creatures that live there, and the male, I don't even want to say main character because he's not really, but the romantic person, he's so nice and so sweet, and it's very friendshipy. So yeah.
Nice.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to recommend something I have recommended before, mainly because it's so good. Also because it is a sapphic cozy romance.
Nice.
It is Pumpkin Spice and Poltergeists, which is a, like I said, sapphic cozy, where it is a small town that paranormals live in, and it's a tourist trap. So they bring all these tourists in and make them think that they're just doing all this stuff for Halloween, but really it's actually paranormals that live there year round and everything. And so it is a witch that runs a spell shop, and then a human girl that comes to town because she kind of sucks at life, and so she moves in with her sister who owns a cafe and is working at the cafe. There is a like murder mystery angle to it that is kind of fun, but it is mostly a cozy thing and is amazing.
Love it.
Okay. Well, that's it, y'all. If you like this episode, you can find us out there on the socials at Wrong Dust Jackets, primarily on TikTok and Instagram, but you can find us on YouTube and kind of just anywhere, really. And you can go to our website, wrongdustjackets.com, to find all the episodes we've done, episodes we have coming up, as well as our blog post if you want to read about books that we didn't talk about on the podcast. So you have even more reviews and recommendations. And we would like it. It would be so super nice if you gave us 5 stars, a like, comment, whatever's available to you on your podcast listening app, because that will help us in the algorithms. And the better we do, the more we can continue to do this podcast.
Woohoo!
Woo!
That's all I've got. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.